So welcome back to the new year. It's been a month almost already. So
Thank you.
how is everyone doing? Survived the New Year's Eve at
Yeah,
least.
have the T-shirt on.
Mm,
Yeah.
good. And so we're gonna go through basically what has happened since last we had a session. And there's basically two major things and a lot of minor things. And I guess a good reminder is to look at the release notes to see what's going on that are published on the wiki.
Yeah.
But one of the major things that is released is the support for Visual Studio 2026.
Yeah. So I noticed. Is it reasonably stable by now?
Yes, he said confidently.
Yeah.
And yeah, we run it. That's the only one I run actually now, so it should be good to go. See, I'm gonna
Very nice. Then I'll have
share.
a look when I can find the time.
So I'm gonna share my screen and I don't know what that was. You still hear me, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. It's me that put my hand up, if that's what you
Uh-huh,
wondered.
right. You're free to talk.
Yeah. Well, I thought if not now, I don't know if you're going to show 2026. Otherwise, from the deployment department, I can just give you an update on our efforts to be more deployable, you could say, if that's a word even.
Now it is.
Yeah. So and what we do is that we are. I mean, in addition that you can download it to run on Linux 64 bits ARM, Mac OS for Intel, and Mac OS Silicon, the servers. So you can run it locally on your Mac if you so wish. And there are also instructions on running the designer on Mac, which work, but there are some shortcomings, but at least it's possible. So you can download all those. We are working on a better like deployment matrix where you will be able to, you could say, filter on the download page on what your favorite thing is, so that you can get a good like these are the binaries that you should subscribe to. We're also going to provide APIs for searching and finding URLs if you have a deploy scripts running, so that you can question our main site through an API. What should I get? And download that for automatic deployment scenarios. In addition to that, we are working also on, or we have now, but I don't think the documentation is up to speed yet, on a Docker hub. So we now publish all the builds that are Docker suitable on Docker Hub. There will be examples and instructions on how to use them. So you will basically, from our site, you can copy a Docker Compose script and run that in your Docker desktop or on your Docker server, and it will deploy. And there is where the deployment matrix comes in, because we will in a while support that you could say configure, I want to run Docker on this platform with this database engine, and then we have MySQL and what's it called?
Postgres.
Postgres. Thank you. For example, And then you can get both a compose file for that, and it can pull the binaries and either build it locally, or you can, so you will get these different kinds of help scenarios. We will also, it looks like, provide scripts for a deployment engine called Terraform that we will use ourselves to automatically deploy to cloud services, AWS and Azure, for example, but also for a local cloud on VMware vSphere. So yeah, you can do deployment there automated by pushing virtual machines to these cloud providers. And then we will also provide some kind of simple hosting service for testing things out. We're also working on extending the GitHub presence with more models. So there will be examples basically for you to auto deploy, and you can script this. So there will be scriptable scripts to download to push both the servers and models to your server if you wish to try different things. That is, of course, as you can hear, mostly for newbies, but I'm sure these scripts could be tailored to push your model if you want to scale up or scale down a solution, for example. So a lot of things happening, both when it comes to widening where you can run MDriven, but also, I mean, like different silicon and different types of operating systems. Of course, Windows is very still alive and running Windows.NET Core, but also scriptability and the ability to push to cloud providers or your own cloud if you have it locally with vSphere, for example. I guess we will also then have what is it called? The other, the free competitor to VMware, for example. It's an open source German. It's called Orange logo. I think.
I can't help you. I don't know what it is. Charles, no, he's not here. It's only his note taker that we threw out.
Anyway, there will be other hypervisors supported.
Yeah.
That's what I want to say. But I
And
think
one of the challenges, Lars, with this is how to segment your unique settings that controls the server side versus the generic bits that are downloaded from wherever, and how to mix that so that it will be easy to upgrade, because that's always a challenge. Once that has been boggling my mind, at least when we're going to replace a whole machine, because you got state on that machine. So when you update it, how can you preserve the state? So there's a lot of considerations and thought about where does the administrative database go and how does it survive and update to the latest version, etc. So we're thinking about those things and tuning those things to get a good sense of how this should be done.
Yes. How to either put it in virtual machines or containers, and how to make the configuration, for example, survive container upgrades. So there's a lot of things going on. What I was thinking of was Proxmox, a weird name, I think, but that's what it's called, and it has orange in its logo, so I was right there. So it's Proxmox, but there will be, as I said, in a while on the main site, like a selection thing so that you can find how to work with your setup, because it seems to be so many, but they are actually important to support many of them. Otherwise, we'll lock ourselves out.
And the ambition here is maybe for established MDriven developers to at least have a good place to quickly start something new. So that you can just point and click to get some servers up, to do a demo or test something or start a whole new project that's gonna rule the world in a few years. Whatever, just so that it's easy access and we don't get boggled down by the need to read documentation and configuring things, and then there's a certificate missing, and then everything stops and no one knows why, etc. So to reduce that friction. Good. Back to, or did you have anything else, Lars?
No, I was done with the deployment talk.
Yeah. So as you can see here, we have 2026. So how can you see that? Yeah, window help about.
Well, the start splash told it.
Yeah, and one of the major things they've changed to this version of Visual Studio is the color, and it's a light blue. Now, I guess they did a lot of things, and there was a lot of things to, at least that we have struggled since actually we removed ourselves from the global assembly cache. And I didn't really understand what was the issue, but now I finally do. And it took some thinking, and I thought that maybe I should tell someone what I've reached my conclusions. So the main reason for MDriven not being in the global assembly cache, which is a special place on the Windows in the Windows folder on the operating system, is because assemblies that are put there have precedence over all other assemblies, no matter where they are found. The global assembly cache, if there is an equal strong named assembly there, it will use that. And that was good as long as we weren't on NuGet with all our versions. Because the moment we started to deploy and distribute all the runtime assemblies via NuGet, if we were to still stay on in the GAC, the global assembly cache, would override any new versions that you put in with NuGet. At least that would be the effect when running locally on the machine that had the global assembly cache assemblies. Then when you shipped to some other machine that didn't have the global assembly cache, you would only get the NuGet versions, and then you would get some discrepancies. Why does it work on my machine but not on that machine? So that is sort of a catastrophe when we don't get repeating results with the development tools, and all such tools should be taken out back and shot. So we needed to fix that. But the hard thing for us was that the plugin for that that lives inside Visual Studio and providing all the design support for MDriven is built with MDriven. And that means that we actually have two versions of our main assemblies for like interfaces and handles and Ecolink extension, etc. And that shouldn't be a problem, right? Until you notice that what actually happens when a designer is brought up by Visual Studio for like Windows Forms is that they load, since a couple of versions back, they load the assemblies from the project. And those assemblies are the ones that comes from NuGet. And all of a sudden we have two strong named assemblies, one from the VSEX, which is installed in the Visual Studio for design time, and one for the project to do the design on that. And that should be fine, right? It shouldn't be a problem. Well, it is. Because when that happens in .NET, you can have these load contexts, application contexts that you can start a new one, and then you can load assemblies into that one. The good with that, and Visual Studio does that for these project assemblies, why they do that is the ability to unload. Because normally when you when .NET loads an assembly, there's no way to unload it. The only way to unload it is if you ahead of time have started a context and make sure that the assembly is loaded into that context. Otherwise than that, the contexts are sort of mixed in memory, so you can work across borders, but nothing will work because a type named exactly the same on this side of the border versus that side of the border are not equal. So whenever there's data from the design time of the Windows Forms that we need to communicate to the design time of the Visual Studio, we can only use simple types, strings and integers and things like that, because those are still shared. And this was the reason behind a lot of the code gen WinForms bugs that showed up last year. What were they called? Have written numerous times about these because I try to understand and thought that I understood. So before,
maybe they're also orange in color.
yeah, before going nuts. Well, that sort of was a misnomer because I went nuts anyway. So that started here with a lot of trying to understand what was wrong with the global assembly cache, and what if we had some assemblies in the cache, would that still be okay? And so there has been a lot of issues like this in Designer CS add range, and then you get some cryptic errors that there were no way out of. And why they were so intermittent and didn't happen all the time, it has to do which assembly was loaded first. So if the WinForm designer loaded a little bit before the VSEX designer, then a certain set of errors appeared, and the other way it was another set of errors. So it was extremely disturbing and strange. And the big issue here is how can we ever solve that? And the way that we ended up doing it is documented on this page, what we changed and what we learned. So basically what we have done now is that we divide the MDriven bits into two sets. We change the signing key of the strong name for all the assemblies that goes into the VSEX build. That means that those assemblies are unique to the VSEX and are not dirtied down by things that are brought in via NuGet and the projects. So that was the first issue, that we now have a clear idea of which side is what. The other problem...
Saying that the designer is always going to use the version you downloaded for the designer.
Yes. And the project is always using the things from your NuGet. And that will be fine. So if you put a handle on your Windows form, that will be from the NuGet. However, Daniel, that is a thing of note, is that this idea with having images on the components, etc., because the components are now extracted from the assemblies in the runtime. And that idea is more or less deprecated by newer versions of Visual Studio. So you don't maintain the toolbox from the VSEX. The toolbox is automatically populated by what it finds in the project assemblies. And it's not super easy to put images, or not. It's not a great idea to put images in the runtime assemblies, and there should be a way, a roundabout way, to include design time images within the NuGet packages, but I've left that to someone else. So now the problem is that we have these two different sets of type systems, and we are really dependent upon being able to share the type system, because that's one of the main things with MDriven, that you design a type system, and that type system can be used in design time. But you can't. So that was a sort of a uphill battle. And there are a few ways that there are two strategies to how we solved it. For all the handles, each handle has been given a logic to stream out all its setting into a JSON string. And that JSON string is lifted over the boundary to the other side and serialized back into objects on the other side. So that's the way we can work with handles. When it comes to the ecospace, and I've been working with these things for so long, so the early things I have the privilege to forget, but then once I deep dive into them again, they all pop back. So the ecospace design, what that actually did is that it looked at the compiled code in the so in the MDriven design, you first code gen. You press this button to generate all the code, and then you compile. And after you compile, you have the code which the MDriven ecospace can reflect back into a model in order to, when you press the upload model from the ecospace designer, that's the reflected back model from the code. And the more I think about this, the more I say that's a really, really roundabout way to do it. Because we have all the, nowadays we have the complete model right here. The only difference is that the code generated model that has been code generated, or the ecospace model that you actually gonna reflect back is based on the packages that you have chosen, because there's a package, a way to choose package. Let's see if we can get it. So I got these errors, and that's typical for my environment, because you remember I said we switch these keys, the VSEX keys versus the NuGet keys. I have a script for doing that. And when I don't do it in the correct order, I get messed up. So we can go here and view the designer of this. So this is the EcoSpace designer, and we have this package chooser here. And we can choose the packages. And we don't have the same thing available in the... so here you could omit 1 or 3 packages that you don't want to be part of your model, but we don't have the same logic when it comes to uploading the model here. It will take all the packages. So it would be neat if the Eco Designer could take this model directly instead of going the very roundabout way of having to do changes, code gen, compile, switch here, reflect back, see what's changed, and upload that, especially for large models. So when it comes to the upload, that's still doing this reflection way to get the model, but there are other areas where we actually use this model instead. And what areas are those? Yeah, the validate model and the evolve schema. So that's a better way to yeah, let's see if I say this right. I shouldn't say too much, but it's a big change on how things have been and how things are now. That being said, if you ever find MDriven assemblies that has a strange key that doesn't match, then you should know that maybe you have accidentally gotten from here where the extension is installed in Visual Studio. It's called something like that. So this is per user in Microsoft Visual Studio, the version and extensions, and then it's given a random name by the VSEX installer, and this is the MDriven installer installation. And here you will find things like MDriven interfaces, that's standard, etc. So don't use these assemblies in your own builds, because they are assigned differently and won't do well with other assemblies gotten from NuGet. But I'm confident that this was the right approach to attack this beast, and that we are all set for a better future. Much ado about that.
I think I'm gonna have nightmares just to hear this explanation tonight.
Yeah.
Oh,
What happens if you have both Visual Studio 2022 and 2026 on the same computer? Anything to keep in mind?
Yes, good question. So the VSEX has been, it's multi-targeting. So when you install, you get 2 checkboxes that says, do you want to install it for 2026? Do you want to install it for 2022? So it's the same VSEX, and Charles has fixed the page to to say that now. Download page. (2026). And so that's safe to run parallel, and it shouldn't be a problem. And since we're nowhere near the GAC nowadays, Global Assembly Cache, this is much cleaner and easier. And Visual Studio will give you one of these. Yeah, if you're on 22, this will be under the 17. I have two here, one version and the experimental Hive, and this is 2026. So that's fine. They are totally separated. You can have different versions on those, or the same version. Or that being said, all the good stuff, changes that I had to do to get 2026 running, they are backported to 2022. So it's the same behavior in 2022 now as in 2026, because that behavior solves the strange problems that we got with the code gen in Windows Forms and things like that. Good. Moving on. The other big thing that was done during the Christmas holidays has to do with sort of design helping with the MDriven turnkey design. So it's reachable from here, from what we call live edit. And it was you that inspired me, Lars, saying that can't recall what you said exactly, but something like it should be easier to get a desired look that you see somewhere else, to bring that into the current the app that you build. And that's all fair. So if we can take this one, I'm gonna turn this into a placing container just for it's easier to do design stuff that way. Why? Well, things don't end up on top of each other. They sort of distribute.
Good. It's good that you remember what I'm saying, because I don't.
And so I gave that some thought, and so one of the things you said, wouldn't it be neat if we just could take these things from LLM that, yeah, let's do an example. If I take an LLM like Gemini and say, ja, var ska vi börja? Can you show me UI for customer feedback in HTML? So then, of course, that's pretty good at doing that. One would think, because it produces a lot of HTML, but it's hard for anyone to parse this in what do you call it, in situ, in the head. So you need to put it in a page to see what it is. So one way is to push this button. So you go on this tab, inspiration and lift, and then you can paste in HTML or change HTML yourself, and then just render that in the browser, and then you see what the LLM did. So that's just a neat little tool. That's not the actual thing. But what if I want to mimic this, take things from this web page to put in my application? I want a button just like this, for example. Then you can go to the select mode and you select the button. And what that does is it's checking the HTML behind and see what colors do I see here, what kind of settings do I see here. Can it seems to be a button. Do you want to add a button? Okay, so I want the border radius, I want the padding on this one and a text align and the font, and I want to put that in a style called style 1, and I want to add.
Oh, I want it to be called feedback button style. I can't remember style 1.
But
It's just you that can do those things, Hans.
so, and then I ask it to add a button and apply the style. And now I have a sort of stolen that from here without too much effort. And what it did behind the scenes was actually to just create a style the way we normally create styles: component content, setting, defining colors, setting the paddings. So it sort of lifts things from elsewhere. And of course, it doesn't have to be HTML you paste in this way. You can just Google things. This is a Apotea is a pharmacy site, and select the page element, and maybe I want this image, and I click that, and it offers me to add the image to assets and use it in this view. And it's not necessarily that it shows straight away because I need to save it so it reloads, but then I have the image there.
Oh, the thieving tool.
Indeed.
I don't
There's
know.
a door.
I'm just a bit stumped to what. Okay, it didn't. Yeah. And you can do all sorts of things to steal colors, and SVGs is especially good. Let's see if. Yeah, maybe not.
Can I then just mention that I've recently found out that you can really use Nano Banana, if anyone knows about that, the Google's way to generate images. If you Google how to prompt it to generate SVGs for icons and stuff, it's really good at that. So it sends it if you just use a trick, but I think it's not available in Europe yet, that tool, but there is a mode that you can turn on. And then you get a web page with all the SVGs rendered. And when I saw this, Hans, I was like, that's perfect. So now you can just generate that from Nano Banana, and then you can steal it. Well, actually, you have created it, but import it very easily into your application. Because I think we all want that, and that's, of course, I don't remember exactly what I said to you, Hans, but I mean, we want this thing where we can make our applications more enjoyable without that taking days. So we want to or make the app approachable without that bogging us down, because I mean, we want to usually developers want to focus on the hard mechanics of an application. But oh no, Derek, you don't focus on hard things.
No, absolutely, I do, of course. I was just following what Hans was doing, and
All right. Okay, I thought you was like, no, I always focus on the soft parts of the application, which is fine. I'm just saying that most developers I know, they are like into the nitty gritty and the mechanics rather than the feel good. But we have to acknowledge that there is a great need, and more so coming, for being able to quickly adapt and add things from AI generated explanations. I've actually started doing that also to generate help texts and things to put into the application. So, yes, sorry, go ahead, Hans. But
yeah, but it's good that you talk, because I don't know why it behaved. It's look totally different. Here it looks like this, but when it renders, it looks like this.
Yeah, that's not a banana.
Not sure why. Maybe it's some of the elements.
Are those two actually the same thing? Or
Yeah,
is
yeah, that's the. If I
LLM
go here,
hallucinating a bit?
yeah, and if I go here and go to that page inside here and consent to everything, and so you can only download it. This is not the SVG, I guess, but you can just samples from Google is good at using SVGs. This is an SVG, so if I select the page element, select that one, add image assets, where is it?
well, in the meantime, then I can talk about another thing. Another application, I needed a progress bar. I wanted dots like this that was filling in and all that. That's also something you can ask ChatGPT or Gemini to create SVG graphics, and then put parameters into the SVG. So you can just say, should it be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this case, and then you got this filling in. So you had a very visual, nice progress bar. So SVGs are good because they can be AI generated quite well, and you can actually understand what's inside them. Right, so that's otherwise the problem. You get an image, or you have to handle many images to make something happen. But with SVG, you get something that you can easily just paste in as text, and then just add a few things for it to react, and you then dynamically can change the content. Of course, you can do any very advanced things with it, but just adding progress messages or something that moves up and down or shows something is interesting. I also don't know if you have done things like I wanted. Maybe I should put that on our GitHub. It turned out really well. I wanted my phone to be able to read QR codes and directly put them into data, bind them into a field, so that it immediately posted. And I just asked, I think it was Gemini 3 in this case, to to solve that problem. I said I want an AngularJS in this case, an AngularJS component or a directive it's called that loads, and I made a few tweaks because you just need to load them slightly different, the directive. You see that on our wiki. And I got a really good QR code reading app took 20 minutes, I think, and it worked really well. And so it has really, I mean, the AI can get really stuck and it's complete crap to solve big problems, but these like creating a component for something, it is really good. So that's just a suggestion that if you want to solve these things, you can do that very well. Especially integrating existing JavaScript things into the application, and then you don't need to understand exactly how all the things inside of it work, and you can ask it to change things. So, for example, the next thing I wanted in this case was the ability to read many things and put it like and the next read should come when I had processed what it had said and cleared the attribute. Then the camera app should again be able to take the next picture. And then the AI just changed it, so it turned out really well. You read it and it makes a green flash. It says, I read it, and then it locks the camera in read mode. And then like a second later, when it has been to the server and the server comes back and the field is empty again, the camera unlocks and you can read the next one. And it's so beautiful because of all the automatic sending to the server subscription. I didn't have to implement anything. It just works, and I get the data into the server, and then I have a derived settable attribute. And the derived settable attribute, that code gets called, it adds it, and then clears the attribute, and it's empty again, and then you just read the next thing. So it turned out to be, I thought, wow, this is going to be really difficult when you want to read a lot of QR codes. But it was like from beginning to end a 1 hour endeavor to get mobile phone reading with QR codes. And so a bit of a model and then an AI assisted directive. Really neat.
Yeah. So I don't know why the SVG didn't work today. It might be yet another tweak that's needed. And I did have some good examples on a page where I had a lot of SVGs that I used to test this, but I can't remember what that was. But I do believe that this kind of tool is useful for things that if you see a certain public font or a way of working on how to have the different sizes and how things should line up to be able to easily replicate that in your application. So besides from being able to take specific input elements, etc., it can also, the ambition was that it should be able to take structure. So what do I mean by structure? Well, placing containers. They build up sort of a box in a box in a box. And that's not uncommon that people do that when they design web pages to make them, responsive. But if you select one here, you also get this part, structure part, which says what are the flex boxes from here and upwards. So that might be something that I want to rip off. And then I can do apply structure. And depending on where I stand, if I stand on the top, how did I do that? If I stand, I'm gonna press Ctrl Z, then it disappeared. And then I apply structure from the top, then I get all the free and I get a highlight here on, yeah, now I remember. So this red box is which flexbox I've selected here, and that's the second one, and the third one is this. So you can see how the structure is built up from where you have pointed. I pointed at this one, and then you got the structure. How did I get there? It's these 3 levels. And if you say, I want all of these 3 levels, then you stand on top and do apply structure, and you will get those levels and all the settings from the flex boxes that we understand here are lifted over to
Do you get their wrapping settings and
exactly.
how they have
So
aligned?
if margins and justify content and stretch,
Okay.
things like that.
Mm.
So that might be something that is useful. Now I can put the image down there. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
So what I think what we will never be the designer's first choice for pixel fixing things. We are more of the magic tool that brings it all together, and it will be very easy using our tools to get very close to the absolute top-notch finish. And top-notch finish, you might want to do some extra polish, but it should be easy to do the 99% of anything. Lars?
Yeah, I raised my hand in protest. Well, no, I mean, when you say perfect and UI and everything, I think today, if you look at what you can create with the flex boxes, I mean, that's the placing containers and all the subscription, because we have a fully subscribed user interface and you can use expressions for everything, including styling, colors, everything. The cool thing with it is that the UI can change dynamically and showing and hiding and doing so many things. So I think in many cases you could say that, well, maybe it's not what you meant, of course, Hans. It's not like a pro designer that made the color schemes, and that's what you have shown us here. But if you look at usability, and when it comes to how dynamic you can make it react to user data and what a workflow, and as I did, integrated this barcode or QR code reading, the SVGs for visualizing a progress bar. We have translation engines, you have all these things that you can do to dynamically update. That is super hard things to do in general, and you can do it really fast. So we should, but we need to now I'm of course preaching here, but we need to also try to make this more available to the people looking at our tools. And for Derek and Frederick and Daniel who are watching these things, be aware of how very different you can do with MDriven today than you could just a year or 2 years ago. It's a very different landscape, because you have these sub columns that I know you have shown before, Hans, but that you can add on a lot of things to each column, which makes it you have dynamic buttons, dynamic labels, dynamic help, dynamic validation, floating error messages, And all of these things are, all of it is subscribable attributes. And that is the power of it, because then you can put all the business rule in your model that directly influence and shows up in style changes in the user interface. And you can also now detect if you're on a small screen or a large screen, so you don't need to do everything in CSS. So if you just make it different, you can actually dynamically change what you're seeing, not only with CSS, but also model those things. So that was my hand raised, Hans, because I think we need to not say that we're not good.
Yeah. So then it comes down to the definition of good and the definition of good enough, and that's always in the eye of the beholder. But what we definitely and it's also important to remember that even if we only reach 99% of a professional designer's wishes, there's no glass roof. You're still able to add the 1% yourself on top. And that's a very important aspect to everything we do, that we don't sort of have any full stops anywhere, and you can always extend. Very good. Thank you for turning up this cold winter's night, and hope to see you next month.
And the ones at the equator, well, you have your nice weather anyway.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Nice to see you all. Bye-bye.